Hey, this is Sportsslaw with Lomas Brown, the pro.
And Deb Schneider, I'm the prof. And together, we're the pro and the prof. Welcome to Sportsslaw. We're on episode 50 now.
Yes, we're making it, Deb. We're getting up there. Yes.
I know. And for our 50th episode, we've got Racket Up Detroit. We've got Derek Aguirre, who's executive director of Racket Up Detroit, and Desmond Darby, who's a graduate of Racket Up Detroit. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to talk about is the Racket Up Detroit, obviously, what it does, where it started, what it means, and how important squash and all of that is to, athletes in general.
Yeah.
So first of all, how's everybody doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, Deb, I would like to congratulate Derek. I was just reading over some of the stats, and I know, again, almost 100%, or is it 100% graduation rate? I just love some of the figures that you've thrown out there, how your kids participate in school a lot more than what the Detroit system is doing for the kids there. It just seems to be just a great correlation with what you're doing with the Racket Up, and also with what's going on with the kids and retaining them being able to retain information and really take themselves to another level. I mean, I want to commend you for starting this program up.
Yeah, Derek, can you tell us a little bit about how it started and about Racket Up Detroit?
Sure. Well, Lomas, thank you. It's nice of you to say. I'm really glad to be with you all, and so thrilled that Des could join us tonight. He's going to be more inspiring than me, more relevant than me, but I'll do my best. So Racket Up Detroit it's a youth development program. We started about 11 years ago. We're based in Northwest Detroit at the Northwest Activity Center, which is a major community hub. It's been there 60, 70 years. And what the hook is that we teach the sport of squash, which is not the most common sport. Most people do not play it, but the people who do love it, and it's a great vehicle for health and social life and certainly education, and that's part of what we'll talk about today, I think. We, as I mentioned, we've been around 11 years, and we've got a lot of traction. We before the pandemic, we're serving about 110 kids in the school year program. They come after school and spend about 3 hours with us. Each student does 3 days a week, and they learn to play the sport. They get a lot of help with school. That's homework help and literacy support. And then eventually it becomes really about, okay, what's happening after high school, college prep, career development, and trying to help young people find the best path in life. And we're off to a good start and have big ambitions for the future too.
Yeah. Deb, I just have to ask Des a quick question. What drew you to racquetball? What drew you to that sport? I mean, what is it? I know all the ancillary things that Derek said, but what drew you to want to try it or participate in squash?
Honestly, is because as a kid, I did a lot of sports. My mom kept me in a lot of sports programs growing up. So they came to my school and they came with a sport I have never heard of or never seen. Mm-hmm. And then they were playing it like against our gym wall, and it just looked really interesting. So I was like, I want to do that. And so then I wanted to do it. And then we had to go like tryouts, and it was nice. I got to play myself. It was really fun to play. And they told about all these traveling opportunities we get to do and being able to play against our friends. And then from there on, the passion for it grew.
So you're a good squash player then, huh? After all that. When did you start?
I started in the summer of 5th grade, I believe, because I didn't make it to the program originally, like at the very beginning, but like in the summer I was in, and then I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. So just full disclosure now, Desmond is a senior defensive tackle, 6'3". He told me about 305 pounds. So he's not your typical, am I correct, Derek? That isn't your typical squash size player. He's a lot bigger than normal squash players. Am I correct in saying that?
You know, Des has a distinct advantage on the court, we'll say. It is a game. It's a game of real estate, and you know, he also happens to have great hands, so that doesn't hurt.
Now, Lomas, you have a theory that playing racket sports in particular are really, really good for the big guys and the linemen. And Des, that's what you play. Can you expound on that a little bit, Lomas? Why do you think so?
Well, because we kind of, and Dez knows this, we kind of operate in a box. You know, we're not these fancy wide receivers that line up out wide, or these running backs that get to run in space. We're confined to like a small area of the field, and most of your battles are hand-to-hand battles, and they're in that tight area. And like I was telling Dez earlier, that's what I recommend to all the linemen, especially the high school linemen that I coach. I want them to play racquetball or play squash, play those type, because you get to work on your lateral movement, side to side, front and back, hand-eye coordination. And like Derek just said, you get to take up that real estate, because I know the middle of that court is probably the most important part. If you get that territory in the middle, you don't want to give that up. And it's kind of a little give and take with offensive linemen and defensive linemen. They don't want to give up their territory, and we don't want to give up our territory. So I just think the mental aspect of the game too goes a long ways, that fits in a long ways with what we do out there on the football field. I mean, I'm sorry, Des, man, what ways have you seen any ways that this has helped you out on the football field?
I think honestly the biggest part was learning how to use my length, because I'm used, like in the squash course, I'm a bigger person, and then like I'm a longer individual. So like having to work on my extension, like in the squash court, for instance, like you said, the middle of the court is pretty much where you want to be at all times. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I could take maybe one step or just lunge sideways and be able to use that where I have to expend as little energy as possible helps out a ton, so I don't have to wear myself out. And then transition to football, me getting want to get a full extension and learn how to maintain my space and use stuff that won't tire me out and stay in technique sound, which is a big part, especially playing on the O-line, because strength and power and speed only get you so far. So you have to depend on your technique a lot. The same thing as squash. You can be fast and get to the ball. You can be strong and hit the ball hard. But at the end of the day, technique is going to be what's going to carry you to your best position and best 1 point.
So many great lessons. So Derek, there are other programs out there. Of all the sports, why squash? I mean, that's such an unusual sport to be playing. You know, I've played racket sports my whole life, and I just started playing squash. And by the way, I'm not playing with any of you.
Oh, you know, there's the answer to the origins why squash was used initially when the first program like this was started in Boston in 1996. Okay. The answer to that is the guy who started that program was a squash player, and a professional. He was one of the best in the world, and his name was Greg Zaff, and he got to the end of his professional squash career and said, one, it's kind of crazy that you have to be from a certain background to even have heard of squash, let alone play it. And secondly, the sport is so good for developing health and fitness, and it can open so many doors, personally, educationally. You know, like golf, it's a great networking game. Helps a lot of people in their business careers. His hunch was that this would be a great vehicle for supporting young people. He started that program in Boston, and that, again, almost over 25 years ago, and it's now in 20 cities across the country. Racket Up Detroit was the 10th iteration of it. We started in 2010, and we're still going. And I think the second answer to your question, why squash, why has it now been over a quarter of a century, and why has it expanded to 20 cities? It's a great game, and it opens doors.
It is fun.
Kids like to do things that are different, especially at the age that Desmond started, 5th, 6th grade. It's novel. You know, not everybody has a chance to do it. It's got a little kind of a cachet, and they get to travel, get to meet new people. There's gear, there's apparel, there's lingo. All of that contributes to intrigue for kids. And then once they get into it, like Desmond, you know, you can get hooked and you want to keep playing. So initially it was a squash guy. Long term, it's a great vehicle for young people to grow and develop.
Yeah, and it's kind of unusual. I'll just lay it out there. I mean, you're at the Northwest Activity Center, predominantly Black surroundings, Black neighborhood that's in. So I'm taking that most of your students are probably African-American students. And you just said it earlier, this is a privileged sport. This is a sport that we aren't exposed to. So my question to you, have you been surprised at the participation that you've gotten from the students that you worked with over the years?
You know, I was wondering, I did this in Boston. I actually worked at that organization for a number of years. That's where I learned, that's where I started playing squash, where I learned the approach to youth development. And I grew up in Michigan, but I had not lived in Detroit. And so I was wondering, how is this going to catch on? Mm-hmm. And what I learned is that, you know, if you're genuine and you can engage people, you know, they'll get into whatever you put in front of them, especially kids. And I do think squash is special. I do think it is captivating. And so, and then I would add the support from the families who were just as open-minded as the young people around trying something new has been instrumental. Desmond's family is a great example of that. We've been on many trips with Desmond's mom, who kind of became a honorary staff member, chaperone, with Chicago and Cleveland and Cincinnati. And, you know, it's that level of support we've seen in Detroit, which is, you know, an iconic sports town. I mean, people get behind their young athletes, and that was true for us, even though it was squash.
Yeah, Detroit is a fabulous sports town.
Yes.
Yeah. So Des, as a kid, you're starting squash. How many other kids? I mean, was this something that you all talked about? I mean, like, why would you stick with it? Was it cool? Was it not cool? I mean, you know, I was kind of in an uncool sport, but
honestly, like I think Mr. Derek hit on, it was new and we had never seen it before, so that instantly drew a lot of people to it. And then me and my friends, being as competitive as we were always like into team sports like basketball or football. So being in squash, where it's more like a one-on-one competition, that is like fed our competitiveness. And you know, there's always trash talk in sports and stuff like that. So that helped feed the energy in. And then the more you played, the more trash you got to talk, and then just the more competitive you came, the better you got, and the more fun it became.
Boy, I have something to look forward to as I learn squash more.
Yeah. So Derek, I wanted to know, why has it translated from the physical aspect of squash to the mental aspect of, again, with your students graduating and, you know, retention being a lot higher? How has the two, why have those two crossed over, and why do you think it's correlated between that, like I say, the physical part, but also you seen these kids seem to be really excelling mentally and academically? Why has that happened, you think?
Well, I think it's baked into the program. You know, from the minute a young person at any of our neighborhood partner schools learns about Racket Up Detroit, they understand that it is not a sports team. It is, but it's much more than that. They know that every day they come to us, they're going to spend as much time in our classroom as they are on the squash court. They know that this is about your future. That's part of the selling package initially. If you're just trying to learn a new sport and that's all you're into it for, you're not gonna last, because you know, you get in and you realize, okay, they're gonna make me study. And then I think the additional piece is that the organization is built for support. That's the whole reason we exist. You know, the talent in Detroit abounds, academically, athletically, personally, and our organization is there to help our students fulfill that potential. You know, and it's at the twists and turns that kids go through and that families go through in middle school and high school years, Racket Up Detroit is a consistent source of support and opportunity. And I think that opportunity piece is important too. That we're constantly looking for what's the next new, interesting, and inspiring thing that our students can do that's going to keep them engaged and growing and wanting more. And Desmond is a great ambassador for that, because I called him today and said, "Hey Des, there's this thing tonight. You think you want to join us?" And he's a yes guy. He said, "I think I can do it." And every new opportunity we put in front of him in the program, he was saying yes, and he can tell you the path. It opened a lot of doors, and it led to big opportunities for him, and that's the model: open the doors, support students and families so they can succeed in those opportunities and stay with them.
So this is much more than playing squash. This is a lot more than playing squash. I mean, you're talking about the families, you're talking about what I'm assuming tournaments, you're talking about travel, you have a scholastic aspect to it. Your kids are succeeding. It's phenomenal. Can you walk me through what you do? I mean, you start in 5th grade, I understand, and how does it work?
Yeah, so it starts with an assembly. We now have 5 partner schools. Des was exposed to Racket Up at Schultz Academy, which is one of our original neighborhood schools. It's a walking distance from Northwest Activity Center. And I'm guessing Desmond probably heard from his teacher, "Hey, we're going to have this thing today. Go in the gym." and there we were with a bag of rackets and squash balls and a pitch. This is something you should try. Give it a shot. You never know. You might like it. And from that initial exposure point, it's a relationship building effort. So the students that love it decide to try out. They throw their hat in the ring. They come to Northwest Activity Center for 2 weeks and try squash, try our academic and team building activities, and see if they like it. And that's really the key. If they like it and they're working hard, they keep going. And so what it means to keep going, again, is 3 days a week throughout the school year. It's academics, it's the sport of squash, and then it's all the big opportunities that come around that: travel to tournaments, college tours, community service projects, really anything cultural outings. We visit museums, anything we can think of to kind of open the students thinking about what's possible and where they could go in life.
Yeah. So I'm a recreational racquetball / squash player, but Des, I wanted to know, do you have coaching? Is there a coach there? Do y'all have a strategy? Do y'all have plays? I've never been, like I say, I've never done it competitively. I just get in there and just do my own thing. But do you have all that? Is it coaching? Like I say, do you have a strategy? Do you have plays? How does that work that way with competitive squash?
Competitive squash, so there's not so much plays, but there's like a lot of strategy that goes into it. So during tournaments, you have a match. You have someone, usually either like a teammate or a coach outside your court, that watches your match, and it's like consists of a best of 5. So when you play a game or you finish a game, you come out, you talk to your coach, and they tell you like what they see, what you think you should do, what they think you should change. So like say they notice that you were like, sometimes you have like a tendency to stay away from the tee, which is the middle of the court where you want to be. If you're like slacking off there, or like you're not staying there, that's what gets you out of position. They tell you get up there. There's already tell you to focus more on your serves, try to get to play deep, try to play short, just things of that nature. Just in a way to change up the pace of the game for you to control the pace. But as far as plays and stuff, there's nothing like that. But even in practice, there's no plays, it's just drills and footwork. And you just like a lot of solo practice, and you just hitting the ball back to yourself.
Okay.
And Desmond was fortunate that I was only his coach for maybe a year or so. We brought in a real qualified coach. So believe it or not, his coach for a number of years was a woman who comes from Manchester, England, and was British champion when she was 18. Played professionally, and she's been coaching at Racket Up now for 9 years. And so we've got really world-class coaching, and lots of local squash players from some of the local clubs who have come and volunteered to coach. some of the best players, really all of the best players in Southeast Michigan have been involved in some way, and our students have benefited from that.
Wow, I'm actually pretty jealous here. Now, I know you're looking for a home, and I think you're going to actually be starting to build it.
That's our big vision for the future. Northwest Activity Center really is our home. We've been there for 11 years. We've loved it. It's been an incredible, place for us to build trust with the community because it's such an institution. And we've kind of hit our ceiling though. We've run out of space to serve more students. It's also about kind of planting roots and knowing where we're going to be in 25 years. That we're going to have a dedicated home that is built to suit. It is from the squash courts to the education spaces. It is designed to fit our program. So we're actually in construction now. We started in about January, and it's going to be finished by the end of this calendar year. So next year, when Desmond comes home from for the holidays, he's going to get a sneak preview of the new facility, and it's going to really open the doors for us to do a whole lot more in Northwest Detroit.
So, Des, are you planning on introducing any of your teammates, or have you introduced any of your teammates in college to the game of squash?
I've kind of introduced them to it, not like as we went to play, but I told them what it was. Cause we're just talking about just having random conversation. I said I used to play squash, and they basically asked what it is. And like the best way I found to just tell them what it is, I just show them a video, and like it's like because it's hard to explain. I could say, "You ever heard of racquetball?" They say no to that. I'm like, "Have you heard of tennis?" I was like, "Okay, tennis is like racquetball, and racquetball is like squash, and it's just like it's too much gray area there." So I just figured a video is the best way to show them what I used to do.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's turn to this past year. And obviously COVID has been a huge piece of the past year. How has it affected both of you? You know, Des, I know we talk a lot on this, on Sportsslaw about how COVID has affected the teams, you know, all the college teams and everything. And of course, obviously there's a huge effect with school. And are you in school? Are you not in school? How has COVID affected Racket Up Detroit, and how has COVID affected each of you? That's a big question.
Desmond, you feel free to go first, Desmond.
As far as school wise, so in the fall we came to camp and we weren't sure if we were having a season yet. And then before, like a week before camp ended, they said we weren't having a fall season. And then that's when the spring season talk got started. So we basically had the entire fall was just all fall camp. Which camp is just basically like no games. It's just you and your team doing scrimmages and stuff like that. And then for classes, it was somewhere in person, somewhere online, is somewhere a mix. It was like in my school, we're trying to make it best for everybody and easy for everybody to be comfortable. So they wouldn't force you to go to class. You felt like not comfortable going to class, and everything was Zoom, which was a little weird to get accustomed to, learning from being in person and being able to talk to your teacher and stay after with the teacher so she can show you. You have to be online, and they can't draw on the board, so they're like going off PowerPoint. And some PowerPoint learning is kind of difficult because it's hard to get examples of. And then as far for the football team, is the coach is trying to figure out what's the best way to still be a team, but still be safe and follow COVID protocols. So it was just a lot going on, especially in the fall. It was just a weird thing to get accustomed to. But in the spring, they got a better understanding of what they're doing about the rules. And then in the spring season, it ended up being not canceled, but we had to have, instead of 6 games, we had 3 because we ended up having to stop midway because of a COVID outbreak on the team, which sucks to have, but it's hard to prevent when it's a contact sport, just being all that transfer of sweat and all the extra. But hopefully we get it better this year. It was just hard staying motivated and dedicated throughout the season. And school year being that there was so much change and so much going on, there's just a lot more work to be a good student or a good athlete.
Yeah, I love those stories. And Derek, how's it affected Racket Up Detroit?
It's been a very challenging year. I would say squash is probably one of the least COVID-friendly activities. You're you're in a box with another person breathing hard and sweating, and so we really haven't played much squash in the last year. We started playing again in March, but really just practice, one person on a court. We're starting to look at having folks who live together can play, and then we'll go from there. And but on the whole, it has been an entirely disrupted period for the young people in our program. Most of them have been entirely remote from school, and virtual learning is really challenging. There's all kinds of challenges built in, whether that's technology gaps, or I don't have a place that's quiet to study in my house, or and the other thing we've just seen, especially with older students, is that it's kind of changed the way that everybody operates. A lot of our high school students are working a lot. They're watching younger siblings. They've got other obligations that, because school is in a way asynchronous, and is, you can do it in a different manner than you're not in school from say 9 to 4. It's open opportunities for young people in some ways, but it's moved them further probably from the track they were on, of just moving toward graduation and so on. So we've got a lot of unpacking to do, not just Racket Up Detroit. I think society, as we try and figure out what does this mean for young people, what does this mean for families. I'm sure everyone's following how Detroit Public Schools Community District is trying to draw students back in and get everybody back into where we were before the pandemic. But we may have to reevaluate and think about new models, what have we learned from this disruption? That's what's on my mind these days.
Yeah. So Derek, does that mean more marketing? Does the future hold marketing that you guys have to do to kind of get it back to where it was? What type of strategies are you thinking about?
Yeah, well, it does. We do take our cues in a way from the schools, because we've always picked students up when they get out of school and they come to us.
Mm-hmm.
So we will need to see what it looks like in terms of school, returning into in-person session in the fall. But as an example, we've had students coming to us for academic programming since October, and we were their virtual school site for a number of them. So we've heard of learning labs, or places where landing pads where students can have good internet and have support when they need it academically and so on. So we've done a little bit of that, and it's possible that we're still in that kind of place in the fall. That during the daytime, we can provide that service. But I'm not totally sure where we'll go. I think we'll probably broaden our recruiting and open it to more a broader pool of students. There's still a lot of families that don't feel comfortable doing things together in person.
Yeah.
So it's, in a way, we're going to have to look for students and families who do feel comfortable being in person and leverage that. And but I think a lot of it is going to require listening to the students themselves. What do you need now that the plates have shifted and you've got new circumstances? What's most valuable for you? What's going to be most supportive for you to keep pursuing your goals? And listening to them and their families, I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah, COVID has been such a huge part of this last year, and it's changed everything. And we talk about it so much, that how much it has changed and where we're going with it now. But it sounds like we have a plan. I mean, there's been a few good things that have happened because of this. And Derek and I were talking earlier today, the fact that we're all together. Des, you're not even in Michigan, are you?
I actually just got back to Detroit, not like 2 weeks ago.
Could have done this in studio.
The next one.
Yeah.
Next one we'll do in studio. So let's turn to something a little fun. What's your favorite memory or story from being part of Racket Up Detroit? Des, I'm sure you've got to have some good ones.
I think my favorite memories are I have a couple, but one was my favorite tournament to go to was in the summer. It was a King College tournament, and it was like to everybody, at least me, it was the best tournament to go to because you got to stay in college dorms, and you had to play you had the tournament playing, then they had a basketball court after you got done with your sports match you could play on. But because like there was like studio dorms type thing where you had like 4 in like one little area, I remember we had moved the dresser and then trapped somebody in their room with the dresser.
That might have been me.
I remember you came back and you had made us move the dresser. Then like later that I remember I hid in my room because you were yelling at them to move the dresser, and I just acted like I was asleep, so I didn't come out. But yeah, the King College trips were always really fun for me. And then another one would probably be my first time in New York with Karan and Khalil, because that was like, I can't remember how old I was, but I know I was really young. And
you were probably 12 years old, I think.
I would say, yeah, I know Mr. Derek didn't come with us. Like me, Karan, and Khalil were by ourselves on a plane, which was really weird and really like a lot for me.
I don't even want to know what happened.
But then we got to New York, and me and Khalil and Karan got to go shopping with Mr. Parker, who was like one of the original staff members, Racket Up. And it was good to see him because we hadn't seen him in a long time because I think he went back to finish school, maybe. I'm not sure, I can't remember. But being in New York for the first time like that was really fun. And being on our own, we got to live with host families. It was just a really cool thing to be around people and have to grow up kind of. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah. So Desmond, I know we do a lot of conditioning in football and everything like that. No conditioning in racquetball, right? Do you have to condition anything, push-ups or lift weights, anything like that?
So we didn't lift weights, but we did do a lot of conditioning.
Oh, okay.
So we did like court sprints or suicides, and then we had like this thing we had to do mile run, and then there was also this thing called the beep test. And the mile run is like, it's fine. No one wanted to do mile run ever, but we did it. It's fine. But the beep test was like, basically you were competing against yourself. It's like, what's another one? It's kind of like, I think it's like the pacer test kind of similarity, but basically you just get a certain time to run a certain distance, and then you just keep going to see how high of a level you can get. And basically after that, like you pretty much come up drained because you're trying to give all you got so you don't get out, because you get like 2 strikes. And then you have to stop running because you didn't pass. Wow. Those conditioning days were like the worst. And then we had like some days when both schools got together. It was like we'd be on the court just like a circuit drill, do push-ups, sit-ups. Some would be like wall sits, and then it was just like a lot of different workouts. But the worst was the conditioning because there'd be like a lot of court sprints to run, or a lot of the beep tests or mile run, you're trying to beat your friend and you end up just being gassed out.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, man.
That's if you're competitive and you want to.
Okay. Thank you, Derek. Thanks.
Wow, it sounds like fun. You're putting 12-year-old kids on planes and send them to New York. That's awesome.
We always said when an opportunity was dangled in front of us, we always said, why not? Let's figure it out. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a seed planted for a young person that one day they're going to say yes to something because they had the courage to do it when they were young. And, that's certainly borne out for Desmond and a lot of our other young people. Just pushing through barriers, Yeah. We figured it out, and that gives everybody the confidence to try the next big thing.
Yeah. With support, obviously there's a lot of support with Racket Up Detroit that you're helping the kids out, and giving them a little soft landing when you're putting them on a plane and sending them to New York.
There was someone on the other end to receive him.
Of course. Yeah, I heard about the shopping trip. Did we get anything good?
I remember me and my friend went to Liz. That was like the first time we ever been to Liz. We had got customized hats.
Oh yeah, Liz. Yeah.
You didn't buy a Giants hat, did you?
Yeah, well, I spent 2 years with the Giants in New York, so you could do some power shopping. They do power shopping in New York, so yeah, you get some good shopping done there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Derek, forgive me for this question here, but is squash an Olympic sport? Is it I know, I think it's pro, right? Can't you go pro playing squash, but is it an Olympic sport?
Unfortunately, it's not an Olympic sport. We've tried. We were probably top 5 a couple of times for new sports to be let in. Somehow, trampolining and
break dancing, right? Isn't break dancing supposed to be doing? I think break dancing might be a sport now in the Olympics, but
which is is an admirable activity, certainly. No, squash is a global game. It started in England, and it's really like you can find a squash court pretty much anywhere in the world. The current dominant country is Egypt. They have probably 5 or 6 of the top 10 players in the world in both men's and women's. It is a professional sport. You can't make a ton of money doing it. I think that's still a barrier for kind of the growth of the game. You probably make 1/10 of the money you can make in tennis, and it's probably not as TV friendly as tennis or some other sports that are more prevalent. Desmond, I don't know if you're still watching YouTube matches. It's a ton of fun to watch, but those have been some of the barriers for getting it into the Olympics. I think if somebody just happens upon a squash match on TV, are they going to get it? But it hasn't stopped the growth of the game. It's U.S. Squash is the governing body here in the United States, and they've just completed an incredible national training center in Philadelphia that's got something like 24 squash courts, singles and doubles, and it's going to be a hub for the future of the game. Certainly, our facility in Detroit is going to be a hub for the future of squash in the Midwest, and there's a lot of courts being built, and I think the word is getting out.
How does squash rate in terms of other racket sports in that? Obviously, there's tennis, there's racquetball. Squash is not one that we think about first and foremost.
Unfortunately, it's all I think about. For me to answer that question, I think part of the challenge is historically it got stuck in exclusive spaces, and that's changing. Our new facility is going to be a public accessible. It's not wide open doors, but it's in Northwest Detroit. It's not going to be a secret, and we're going to really try and engage the community around it. I play at the Detroit Athletic Club, which is an amazing club. But if you're not a member, you probably wouldn't know that much about squash at the DAC. And that's changing. And I'm optimistic that the profile of the sport is gonna elevate as a result.
Yeah, it sounds just wonderful, all the things that you're doing. So if somebody wants to get involved, how do they get involved with you?
Yeah, well, start with young people. We're in Northwest Detroit, and we're going to have capacity in this coming year, and we're going to find ways to get the word out and let people know about how they can join. If you're a member of the community and you want to help in some way, there's always 3 things that we talk about. One, we raise every dollar that we spend. We don't have any guaranteed funding. Every year we start at 0 and go out and we've got a very talented, dedicated staff, and that's our largest expense is supporting our staff. And we need donations. So foundations, corporations, individuals. We have 2 big campaigns each year. There's one in the fall that's a mail campaign, and there's one in the spring that's an online fundraising effort that just finished up called the Double Down. But independent of that, our website is the place you go to make a donation. It's racketup.org. I'm guessing we can pop that on the screen at some point and share it.
We'll put it up there. Mm-hmm.
And so funding is number one. That's how we grow and do more in the community. Secondly, volunteering. We actually, when things get closer to normal, we'll be back with in-person volunteering opportunities in the classroom, helping out as a tutor, on the squash courts, helping out as a coach. And everyone who has an interest, there's going to be a spot for you. If you don't play any squash, we're probably not going to throw you on a court and have you teaching it. But if you play a little bit and you're learning, you're gonna be important, and we'll find a way to get you involved. The third thing is spreading the word. So so many opportunities that have come to our organization and to the young people in our organization are because somebody said, hey, I heard about your program from my friend who's a volunteer or who contributes, and have you ever thought about sending kids to this summer camp, or have you ever had them visit this college where I'm an alum? They might be interested in it. That kind of thing has yielded 11 years of open doors, and we encourage people to spread the word. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and talk about us when you're with people you love, and tell them to try and get involved.
Yeah. And of course, like some sports, because of the cost of it, prohibits a lot of kids from getting involved with it. But I'm guessing a racket and a good pair of shoes.
Yeah, a little eye protection, and you're off and running.
Okay.
For the students in our program, we don't want cost to be a barrier. We work hard to raise support so that, we ask for a small contribution from the families every year. And if it's a struggle, we work around it. And if you're just trying to learn the game, access to courts is kind of the first challenge. But once you've got access, I'm still using the same racket I used 10 years ago. So you can get some longevity out of the equipment and have a really great time and a great workout while you're doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a great program, everybody. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to say definitely check out Racket Up Detroit, which is racketup.org. And you can check us out on sportslaw.com, and we'll have something on our website about Racket Up Detroit. And you can check us out on Spotify. We've got YouTube, we've got SoundCloud, all of that. So please listen, tell all your friends to listen, and let's all get going with some squash.